People imagine saints as beings untouched by pain, floating above the world in endless bliss, as if spirituality were a permanent smile carved onto the face of life. They think God realization means comfort, sweetness, and light alone. But, dear seeker, this idea is not truth, it is a half-dream. Real spirituality is not an escape from suffering, it is an intimate encounter with it. What if I tell you that one of the greatest mystics of India did not walk a path paved only with joy? What if I tell you that his ecstasy was born not in ease, but in fire? Sri Ramakrishna's love for God was so intense that it shook his body, tore through his sense of self, and left him trembling between heaven and earth. He laughed like a child, yes, but he also wept like a lover separated from the beloved. He sang, but his throat burned. He tasted divine bliss, yet his human frame carried unbearable pain. This is not a story meant to impress you, it is a story meant to be honest with you. Because if you are walking the spiritual path and you feel broken, lonely, confused, or overwhelmed, you may secretly believe something has gone wrong. You may think, if God is near, why does it hurt so much? Dear seeker, this question is sacred. Ramakrishna himself lived inside this question. His life whispers a truth most people are afraid to speak. When love for God becomes real, it does not merely comfort the ego, it consumes it. And consumption hurts. Just as fire burns wood to reveal heat and light, divine love burns identity, attachment, and control. Today, we will not worship bliss alone. We will bow to the pain behind ecstasy, because only then does spiritual life stop being fantasy and start becoming transformation. Dear seeker, one of the first illusions that must gently fall away on the spiritual path is the belief that spirituality is meant to feel good all the time. The world quietly teaches us that if God is near, the heart should always be peaceful, the mind should always be calm, and life should flow without resistance. When suffering appears, doubt immediately follows. We begin to suspect ourselves, our practice, or even the divine. But this assumption is not wisdom, it is misunderstanding. True spirituality does not anesthetize the human experience, it deepens it. Sri Ramakrishna's life stands as a living correction to this myth. His days were not a smooth river of joy, they were a powerful tide where tears and laughter rose from the same depth. At times he danced in rapture, and at other times his longing for God made him restless, wounded, and undone. This was not imbalance, it was intensity. When the soul stretches toward the infinite, the finite personality feels strain, just as a small vessel trembles when filled with a vast ocean. Dear seeker, pain on the spiritual path does not automatically mean you are failing or falling away. Often it means that something in you is being asked to grow beyond its old limits. Comfort strengthens what already exists, discomfort transforms what cannot remain the same. Ramakrishna did not seek suffering, nor did he glorify it, but he did not run from it when it arrived as part of divine love. His life teaches us that bliss is not the absence of pain, it is the presence of meaning. When suffering is touched by devotion, it stops being random and becomes revelatory. So if your path feels heavy at times, do not condemn yourself. Instead, listen carefully. Something within you may be learning to release its grip, to bow, and to open. Dear seeker, spirituality does not cancel the body, it passes through it. Many imagine that a saint's body becomes immune to weakness, illness, and decay, as though divine realization wraps the flesh in protection. But Sri Ramakrishna's life gently dissolves this comforting fantasy. His body, like yours and mine, was fragile, sensitive, and deeply affected by the intensity of his inner life. In his later years, severe illness overtook him, slowly stealing his strength and even his voice. The same throat that once poured out songs of devotion and called to the Divine Mother with childlike intimacy became a source of constant pain. Yet, dear seeker, this suffering was not a sign of spiritual failure. It was a reminder that realization does not mean exemption from the laws of nature. The body remains a field of birth, change, and dissolution, even for one who has seen God. Ramakrishna's illness teaches a quiet but powerful lesson: holiness does not erase humanity. He needed care, rest, and the loving presence of his disciples. He leaned on others, accepted help, and allowed himself to be vulnerable. There is deep wisdom here for you. If your body tires, aches, or falls ill, do not think you are less devoted or less worthy. To honor the spiritual path is also to respect the body as an instrument, not a burden. Ramakrishna did not reject his suffering body, nor did he dramatize it. He simply continued to turn inward, offering even his pain to the divine. Dear seeker, let this free you from shame. Taking care of your body, acknowledging its limits, and accepting help when needed are not obstacles to spirituality, they are part of its humility. Dear seeker, ecstasy is often spoken of as a blessing, but rarely as a disruption. We imagine spiritual absorption as something gentle and beautiful, like a soft light descending into the heart. Yet in Sri Ramakrishna's life, ecstasy was not always kind to the ordinary rhythms of living. There were moments when the pull toward the divine was so strong that awareness of the body loosened, as if the soul were leaning too far toward the infinite to remain fully anchored in the finite. In such states, the sense of time, hunger, and physical surroundings could fade, not by effort, but by overwhelming devotion. This may sound glorious, dear seeker, but it carried its own difficulty. When body awareness weakens, daily life becomes fragile. The simple acts of eating, resting, and speaking can no longer be taken for granted. Ramakrishna's life reminds us that intense inner states can shake the foundations of ordinary functioning. This is not something to chase or imitate. Ecstasy is not a trophy of progress, it is a byproduct of deep surrender. For many seekers, the danger lies in confusing intensity with maturity. Ramakrishna himself did not value these states for their drama, he valued only the melting of the ego that accompanied them. Dear seeker, if you have ever felt overwhelmed by inner experiences, floods of emotion, loss of control, or a sense of being unmoored, do not rush to label them as enlightenment or as failure. Walk carefully. Stay grounded. Seek balance and guidance. Spiritual depth is not measured by how far you leave the body behind, but by how gently you return, carrying greater compassion, simplicity, and humility into everyday life. Dear seeker, the path of intense spiritual practice is often admired from a distance, but its inner loneliness is rarely understood. Sri Ramakrishna's longing for the divine was not casual or comfortable, it was fierce, consuming, and relentless. He immersed himself in demanding disciplines, allowing each path he followed to strip away another layer of identity, comfort, and certainty. Such intensity may look heroic from the outside, but from within it can feel isolating. When the heart burns with a single desire for God, ordinary conversations, ambitions, and distractions can begin to feel distant, even unreal. This separation does not come from arrogance, it comes from absorption. Yet absorption has a cost. The seeker may feel misunderstood, fragile, or painfully alone, standing between worlds, no longer fully at home in the ordinary, and not yet fully dissolved in the divine. Ramakrishna lived inside this tension. His austerities were not about proving strength, they were about surrendering resistance. But surrender can be exhausting. The mind tires. The emotions strain. The heart aches for reassurance. Dear seeker, this teaches us something vital: intensity without tenderness can harden the soul. Ramakrishna's greatness was not only in how far he went, but in how soft he remained. His longing did not make him cold, it made him childlike, open, and vulnerable. If your own path feels lonely at times, do not retreat into pride or despair. Let the loneliness teach you compassion. Let it deepen your sensitivity to others who walk unseen inner battles. True austerity is not harshness toward oneself, but the willingness to remain sincere, humble, and loving even when the path feels bare and silent. Dear seeker, the deepest pain on the spiritual path does not come from the world, it comes from within. It arises when love for the divine begins to touch the very center of who you think you are. The ego, which has quietly ruled your inner life for years, does not step aside gently. It resists. It trembles. It feels threatened. Sri Ramakrishna's life reveals this truth with rare honesty. His devotion was not a polite affection, it was a consuming love that left no room for self-importance, control, or spiritual pride. When such love descends, the ego experiences it as loss, even as annihilation. And loss hurts. Dear seeker, this is why divine love can feel like burning rather than comfort. The mind wants assurance, recognition, and safety, but love asks for surrender. It asks you to loosen your grip on identity, opinions, and the subtle pride of being someone on a spiritual path. Ramakrishna often spoke from a place of childlike simplicity, because childlikeness survives only when ego dissolves. That dissolution is not dramatic on the outside, but inwardly it can feel like the ground disappearing beneath your feet. You may feel confused, empty, or stripped of familiar reference points. Do not mistake this for failure. When the shell breaks, the chick feels only destruction, not birth. Dear seeker, God love does not wound you to punish you, it wounds only what cannot travel further. If you feel pain, ask gently, what am I being asked to release? Do not force surrender, and do not cling to suffering. Simply remain honest. The burning will pass, and what remains will be quieter, freer, and less obsessed with itself. Dear seeker, after walking through the fire of Ramakrishna's experience, the question naturally arises, what does all of this mean for you, here and now, in the ordinariness of your own life? His story is not an invitation to imitate his intensity, his austerities, or his extraordinary states. It is an invitation to understand the spirit behind them. The first lesson is gentle but firm. Do not measure your spiritual life by how pleasant it feels. Growth is not always comfortable, and discomfort is not always a sign that you are lost. Sometimes it is simply a sign that you are becoming honest. The second lesson is humility toward the body and mind. Care for them without guilt or pride, knowing that even the most realized soul lived within human limits. The third lesson is balance. Depth does not require drama. Ecstasy is not a requirement, nor is suffering a qualification. What matters is sincerity. Dear seeker, let your practice make you softer, not strained, more compassionate, not withdrawn. If pain appears, do not glorify it, but do not fear it either. Ask what it is teaching you, and then walk on without clinging. Ramakrishna's life shows that the highest spirituality does not separate you from life, it makes you more available to it. Love becomes simpler. Service becomes natural. The ego loses interest in announcing itself. And finally, remember this, the path is not asking you to be extraordinary. It is asking you to be true. Walk slowly. Walk honestly. And trust that even when the road feels heavy, it is still leading you home. Dear seeker, as we come to the end of this journey, let us sit quietly with what has been revealed, not as information, but as reflection. Sri Ramakrishna's life does not leave us with easy slogans or polished promises. It leaves us with something far more valuable, honesty. He shows us that the spiritual path is not a performance of constant joy, but a living relationship with truth. Sometimes that truth arrives as sweetness, and sometimes it arrives as burning. Yet both are expressions of love. If you have ever felt confused, exhausted, lonely, or even broken while walking sincerely toward the divine, know this, your experience does not disqualify you. It may be shaping you. Ramakrishna's ecstasy was not shallow inspiration, it was earned through surrender, patience, and the courage to be undone. And that is why his life creates reverence, not fantasy. Dear seeker, take what serves you and leave what does not. Walk your own path with gentleness. Do not compare your pace, your pain, or your peace with anyone else's. Let devotion make you more human, not less. Let it deepen your compassion for yourself and for others who are quietly carrying invisible struggles. If this video touched something within you, I invite you to pause and share from the heart in the comments. Have you ever experienced pain, confusion, or inner burning on your spiritual path? Or did something in Ramakrishna's life reflect your own journey in an unexpected way? Your words may become a light for another silent seeker reading them. And dear seeker, tell me, what would you like to hear next? Do you wish to explore the sweetness that followed Ramakrishna's suffering, the role of the Divine Mother in his life, or guidance for balancing spirituality with everyday responsibilities? Write it in the comments, and let this space become a living satsang. If this offering resonated, like, share, and subscribe so we may continue walking together. Until we meet again, walk slowly, love deeply, and remember, even the burning is grace. Jai Guru Dev.